So by now, I'm sure that most of us have heard the saying wrong place, wrong time. But I want to flip that perspective a little bit, especially for this episode with Shaté. And I want to say right place, right time, because that is exactly how she was able to make her transition into career and professional development. And on top of that, now she really works on being able to pay it forward, because she will be the first to tell you how important it is to be happy. Happy in life, happy in your career, and how if you're not, it can cost you so many more things than just that money. So, without further ado, enjoy episode 224, Fuel the Fire. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Down to Business podcast here with Tamar Turner. It's almost the end of the year, y'all. Like, it's here. I always tell people, being that my birthday is in July, I feel like, once the summer gets here, the year is over. Even before my birthday, like once June gets here, once the children are out of school, once everybody just has really no responsibilities, we're back in action. But even with that, the grind is ever going. The grind never stops. Weekends, nights, mornings, even at your other jobs, whatever you're doing, the grind must continue. The grind must go on. So very excited to be sitting down today with Shaté, man, somebody who I love when people reach out to me. I love when people kind of find the podcast in this journey. I love when they listen to some episodes, they kind of get the overall gist, the mission, the mantra. And that is what Shaté definitely did. Reading the intro that she gave me, even going through everything that she's doing, and even some of the terminology and just the wording and how she phrased everything, I'm very impressed, but I'm also very eager to learn more and also push her out to my network and my audience. So before we get into all things, before I just let her take over and steal the show, Shaté, how's everything on your end? How you doing today?
Doing well. I appreciate you asking me that. And I gotta say, like, we're gonna have to circle back to that birthday because I've got family whose birthday's in July. I know a lot about y'all Cancer. So
Well, I'm gonna stop you right there. I'm actually a Leo, so I fall on the later
okay.
side of July. But similar to you, my family's birthdays are from the first all the way to I think I may be the last July 26th. I think somebody may be after me 29th. But yeah,
Nice.
July is a jam-packed month. I hate it for my wallet and my bank account, but we make it happen each and every time, and we make it work. But yes, Cancers are some of the most important people in my life. Three of
Uh-huh.
my very, very, very close friends' birthdays are all July 2nd. So
Wow.
I can't get away from the July people, can't get away from the summer people, but nonetheless, the year flows. July, the best month of the year. I'm gonna be a little biased, y'all, my bad. But I love the idea that even through everything, even with everything going on, with everything happening, with we still make it work. Year after year, you get older, you experience more, you go through more, and you even just take that birthday, that celebration, just that being able to be with people, being able to spend time with the ones that you love and care about. It's no other like that. So
Hmm.
I know that between the both of us, we're going to have a few things today. We're going to have some people tapping in from my side and down to business who may not really know too much about you and what's going on. We're going to have some people from your side tapping in as well who may not know too much about me or the podcast whatsoever. But we're going to have my favorite, arguably, and that is the people who know nothing about either one of us. And they're tapping in for the first time. They came across this somewhere in their journey. And I love that. So welcome, y'all.
Yeah.
But for those people, to bring everybody up to speed, to put everybody on the same playing field, can you just do two things for me? Can you, one, just tell me what brings you on? Well, no, actually, one, tell me a little bit about yourself. And then two, tell me what brings you on the Down to Business podcast today.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again for having me. What I'll say is I got to circle back to birthdays one more time. So I'm also a Leo, so we definitely have that in common. And I'll start with that in terms of a little bit about myself. I'm Shaté, originally from Houston. I live in the Atlanta area. I'm a Leo. Shout out to the Leos. And I have got a very interesting career journey. I've been fortunate enough to really do work that lights me up, to build careers. I say plural because I've evolved, as many of us have, and that were dream careers. And so my first career was professional dancer choreographer, and did that for a number of years, and went to grad school, got a master's in dance, and really found my way into career work and worked in workforce development. And so I have the distinct privilege and pleasure to help people really navigate finding work that lights them up. So I love to say I like to help people like live their purpose and love their work, and what that can look like for them. And no two of us are the same. We're not a monolith as people. And so what that really looks like for you, your unique strengths, your unique talents, your unique story, how to tell that so that you can embark upon doing the work that, I feel like we're here to do.
I love all of that. Whenever we can really move in the direction to help others, but in a sense, not only excel and propel them, but make sure that they're happy. Because I feel like in the end, that's really what it boils down to. Your passion derives from that happiness. You could love something all day long, but if you're not happy with it, it will soon feel like a drag, a chore. It'll become just a burden to carry to burden. But if you wake up every day and you truly love what it is that you do, if it doesn't really feel like work, if you show up, show out each and every day, even through the bad days, even through the trials and tribulations, then you're really somewhere where you need to be. And oftentimes, as you said, no two people walk the same journey. And
Right.
with that, things change. You could like something in the very beginning, and then as you kind of get into it, as you move around, you could realize, hey, maybe this is not for me. You get exposed to something else, or maybe you try something new, and you're just like, wow, hey, and never in a million years would I have guessed that I'd be in this lane, but I actually really do enjoy it. And with that, I'm a
Mm-hmm.
big don't knock it till you try it type of person. So a lot of times, how I've come across different likes, dislikes, and everything is just from really trying things, just from really experimenting and not letting someone else's perspective or preconceived notions really take me away from that, block my blessings in a sense. So now
Yeah.
with you, I definitely hear a big transition in that. So I hear, the dance, the choreography, the
Mm-hmm.
feeling around all of that. And now we've kind of shifted into the essence of really just helping others. Now, as I'm sure that your passion for dance hasn't faded or hasn't been lost or anything like that, naturally we just embark on new things, on new journeys. So
Mm-hmm.
for you, how did that transition take place? Like, how did it really become a thing of you beginning to help others? Was this something that as you were kind of growing up and just as you began to really just hone in on things, were people kind of just reaching out to you just for, not necessarily consultations, but maybe advice, maybe your perspective? Oftentimes we always have that one friend, or sometimes we are that friend that people come to that they want to hear from,
Mm-hmm.
that advice from, that, they know that you're going to give them the real, whether they want to hear it or not. So for you, from dance
Right.
to really career transitions and to really allowing people to live into their purpose, how did you get from one side to the other?
Yeah, I mean, so that's why I stumbled upon your podcast and was like, yeah, we should talk about it because you get right down to business, right? And so the transition for me was, like I said, unexpected, or I don't know if I said that, but I was in a position where the work that I have done has chosen me. Even with dance, like I never once was like, "Ooh, I want to be in a dance class." My family put me in dance at a young age, and it chose me, right? Same thing for career development. When I was in grad school, and the undergrads would learn the career that I had before grad school. So I had been working for about 7 or 8 years before I went to grad school. Started my career in LA, had an agent, did a whole bunch of stuff, worked overseas. I also did a ton of theater, like musicals and stuff like that. And so they were like, okay, I'm about to graduate. I'm trying to figure out what's next for me. You've done a lot of stuff I want to do. Can you help me? So that's exactly how it was. It was like they were asking me questions and asking for advice. But the other thing that really did just kind of seal a deal for me was I was in the grad student office and working on my thesis, and the department chair comes in and is like, hey, we got a class that starts in 5 minutes. It's called Career Resources. We don't have a TA. Can you do it? Can you, like, it starts now. Can you go? And back to what you were saying about just kind of being open to what life brings your way. I was like, sure, why not? I'm free right now. And I go into the class and just fall in love with it. It was totally unexpected. I love being able to share all the things I didn't know when I moved to LA for the first time. Everything I wish I did know when I was building my career. All the things that were pitfalls for me, hard lessons, all the tears I had cried. It felt like this was now, like, it meant something now if I was able to share that information with them. And so that's really where it started. I just fell in love with it and wanted to do more. And so I started blogging about all of my experiences because I didn't always have time to really just sit with each person individually. And then I started writing career articles for like Dance Magazine or Point or things like that. And I started building my own kind of work around what it looks like to build a sustainable career as a dancer and an artist. And it's just never left me since then. It's just so important. To your earlier point about career dissatisfaction, the thing that we don't really talk about is that how much it costs us to not love what we do. So there are articles out there that say, like, when you hate your job, it's costing you your physical health. You have more physical problems. You could have like gut issues, you're not sleeping well, like all kinds of things wrong with your actual physical body. And then your mental health, anxiety, depression, right? All of that really takes a toll on your quality of life. And then it also impacts our funds, our coins. So when we don't like our jobs, when we're not engaged, we're actually not making as much money either. And so it's super important. I want to definitely say it's beyond like just liking your job. To me, it's more about like, what's the higher thing that we're all called here to do? And you don't necessarily need to do that for a living, but if as much as possible that we can be connected to that thing that, and it could change. It doesn't have to be the same thing. I know a lot of people feel pressure around purpose and passion, but like as much as we can be connected to that higher thing in service to others, I think the better we all are for it.
And that cost, as you spoke about, yes, it's not just monetary. It can be a little bit of everything, health, but
Mm-hmm.
mental. When I always tell people, and I've shared it plenty of times on the podcast, that I can always tell when my mental is off because it impacts so many different areas of my life. And I
Yeah.
really realized that until I started just making observations of myself and attributing them to the rightful things and not trying to just push things off or give it something that it's not, but really just pay attention to where I am here. So no, I it's crazy just to hear that being free, having just an open schedule really propelled you into this. Who would have
Mm-hmm.
thought? But something that I also heard too was LA, Houston, Atlanta. I've heard
Yeah.
places in these different spaces that you've been in, and these are not just cities. Like these are not just, oh, okay, you just brush over these are major cities. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to hear that and to know that you've been in a host of different, you've been kind of west, you've been, I guess we can say, more so east, a little bit south, and you've been West Coast completely. So was there any particular location or was there any particular time period or where you were that really was instrumental for you? Was it being in LA and not really knowing how things are? Because I heard the West Coast, some people call it the left coast. Like they're just a little bit different in the East Coast and the left coast, where, I mean, directionally wise, right. But when
Yeah.
somebody's nod left, it's just a little different. But as somebody who's never been to LA, never been to Cali,
Uh-huh.
heard it's a different lifestyle, it's different out there. But do you feel like there was one place that you've been, and it could be outside of those three that I've even mentioned, but do you feel like there was one place that was really a defining moment for you?
Oh, that's such a beautiful question. And to answer your question, the part about the people, when you grew up in the South like I did, like had only been in the South exclusively, grew up in Houston, went to college in Atlanta, and then went to LA from there, it was such a culture shock. It was like, what's wrong with y'all? Out here. It was just, and I remember my mom dropping me off and me kind of just like staring at people like she was like, you can't do that. You live here and you chose to live here. So you're gonna have to figure it out. But to answer your question, every season of my career, my life has been instrumental. And I'll tell you why. LA, every season taught me something different that I needed and that I still use. LA is where I really learned how to be a professional artist, a professional performer. I learned the discipline and the grind of working overnight so I could pay my bills and then being available for auditions all day, getting an agent, what it looks like to show up, how you dress, how I present myself, how I need to perform, how I need to network, how I need to be thinking about saving my money. Like all of that I learned in LA, so much so that when I got to the southern parts back to Texas, I took all of that professionalism that I learned and I worked like everything because that's not something a lot of folks in the South really have. They kind of treated it like hobbies. I'm gonna work my day job and then I'm gonna, sort of do this thing on the side. But for someone who like actually knows what it's like to go up against hundreds of other dancers vying for the same role, and I'm like coming correct with my headshot, my resume, I got reels, I know how to do all of that. That's from my time in LA, and I deeply appreciate it. What I learned in my time in the South, like doing regional theater, is that I just love it's the storytelling of the theater is just there's nothing like it to be able to like really see movement and a story come to life on a stage, and it's something I never really thought that I even would enjoy. I was sort of like, "Ooh, I'm a dancer. Would I ever even want to be interested in those other things?" But really, choreographing theater was just like nothing like it. I had the opportunity to choreograph a regional production of The Color Purple, and my God, if that didn't change my life, just seeing that story growing up on as a movie, and all I ever saw was the heartache of that story. My mom used to watch that all the time, and it was so depressing. Like, why are we watching The Color Purple again? But then, as an adult, to really read that script and to understand the self-awareness and the self-acceptance and the self-love of that story that she had to grow to, that just still to this day gets me. And then there was a time where I worked in Shanghai for a few months, and that really just opened my world up in a totally different way. It was like, I learned what was possible for me. I was like in this place with all of these folks from all these other different countries who were also sort of like living differently. And it was just, yeah, I've learned in each season, I've learned more about myself. And then I've taken something with me to help me be a better like professional, a better servant leader. It's just definitely enriched my life in really beautiful ways.
Shanghai. Whoa, I need to up the ante a little bit. I was just telling myself I wanted to get out of the country soon, so I definitely think I need to add that. But no, what you said about the color purple also resonates with me because my mom, God rest her soul, her favorite color was purple, and so that was one of her favorite movies. So as a kid, like I didn't always get that movie. One, it was long.
Yeah.
It was very like you had to pay attention to it, and it got boring. They started talking too much. It wasn't cartoons basically, or it wasn't the shows that I wanted to watch. So it was definitely different. But as you start to get older, there were plenty of things that I just rewatched, or plenty of things that I may have grew up on. And they always say about the certain type of music and a certain type of shows and things like that, just the different meanings or the innuendos that you don't really understand until you get like of age or mature. Certain things that we shouldn't have been listening to and singing along to, that you would have swore we were heartbroken or in love somewhere. Just we're doing every single thing the way we were kind of just reciting things. But as you get older, that appreciation for not only the music, the person, but the art, because that's all really what it is, art in its purest form. And I just love to be able to see that. I love to hear that. So the fact that you were able to resonate, but the fact that you were able to be in so many different places and spaces and take something from that, I think that that's an important part, because oftentimes we move around so much in life. We're here, we're there, we're traveling, we're visiting family, things come up, you got to relocate, do whatever. You always have to appreciate your different experiences. I think about being born in the Bronx. I think about leaving the Bronx when I was 2 and being raised in Philly until I was 18. I think about going to undergrad in North Carolina. I had never stepped foot in the South prior to that. I think about, step foot in the South for that long, let's say. I think about then going back up to upstate New York to get my master's. I think about moving back to Philly for a year after that. And I think about now being in Tampa for the last 4 years. And I think about each of those experiences and places and spaces as something different as it was. I wasn't the same person that I am now, even when I got to Tampa. Mid-pandemic, it was two totally different things. I went from being an essential worker in Philly to getting to Florida, and they had bigger fish to fry than the pandemic. People are looking at me weird because I'm wearing the mask, so it's always so important too. But I think too, what that comes with is living in the moment and just that appreciation. If we don't just take time sometimes to just exist, to just be, it's just like, you could really move around or miss things or look back on things and not really appreciate it for what it's worth, or maybe have a different depiction or recollection of things because of where you were at that point in time. Because sometimes it's also where we are along that journey. Sometimes you're in a place or you're somewhere where you probably could experience it different if maybe your funds were a little bit better, if maybe your mindset was a little bit better, if maybe you even knew people or had somebody to kind of resonate with or anything like that. So it also can depend on our extenuating circumstances just the same. So I love to hear that, through everything, through every place that you've been, through everywhere, every probably person you've met, every interaction that you've had, every grind, every late night, early morning, you've appreciated that, and it's come to allow you to grow into the woman who you are today. So getting into the woman that you are today, you had a very interesting line in your bio, and I want to kind of just pick it out a little bit. Like I said, I did some investigations. I had to pieces around. I had to vet the people who are coming on the show. But the line that really stood out to me was that you have mastered the art of professional transition. I don't think people really understand to master something. Like, to be a master of something, it's like an undoubtable confidence, but also the success speaks for itself. The results speak for themselves. This is not my first rodeo. I'm not just a one-trick pony. You can put me on this side, I'm gonna make it work. You can make me on this, put me on this side, I'm gonna make it work just the same. So for you to have mastered the art of professional transition, when did you feel like when did you really feel like that you overcame that? And I wouldn't even necessarily call it like an obstacle or anything like that, but when did you really feel like you got to that point in life where you were like, look, no matter what, like, granted, I'm not perfect. I'm not just the end all be all. I'm not the top dog when it comes to everything, but I'm very confident in my abilities. I'm very confident in what I do, and I'm very confident in my passion and what I love. When did that happen for you?
Listen, let me tell you about how timing can be so divine. It's interesting because, I have a couple of versions of my bio, and that's one that sometimes I think about, like, oh, do I keep this? Do I not? And it's interesting that it's coming up today as like life is feeling very transitional. It's been feeling like that, I think, for a lot of people that are around me. So to say that I have mastered it, and then to still be in the midst of transitions and they be difficult, is definitely a tension and a friction that I want to name. And I'll say this, the reason that I've felt like I have mastered, the art of transition is because I've done it so much. I from a professional dancer, choreographer to, then a corporate career in career development, workforce development. So I started as a career coach and then was promoted about 5 or 6 times in the span of like 6 years. And so all of those different careers, moving from different cities, then leaving a corporate career, starting my own business. Like, so I've done a lot of moving around, and I want to be honest and say that someone could be listening to this and being like, ooh, your life has been so interesting. I'm envious that you've been able to touch these different cities and have these different experiences. And maybe they're feeling like, oh, I've only done this, insert the thing. I've been this for the last few years. And so they're probably, maybe like dissing themselves a little bit because of that. And what I want to say, I always got to be honest about the other side of the coin, because there are times when me allowing myself to evolve and giving myself permission to grow and change, I have also turned on myself and been like, well, dang, am I flaky? Is there something wrong with me? I grew up where my parents had the same job for decades and decades and decades. And people around me who chose professions in college, like they chose to be a doctor, they're a doctor. They're still a doctor. If they chose to be a lawyer, they're still a lawyer. And here I am evolving and changing and deciding to do different things. And so I question, like, is there something wrong with me? Why can't I sit down somewhere? And, so I think that there is a cost to everything. And what I would say to the person, if you're feeling that, if you're staying stuck because you're too scared to pivot, give yourself a chance. But I think there's valid in all of our stories. There's validity in all of our experiences. And I guess the thing, to answer your question, the reason I feel like I've mastered it, one, because I've done it so much, and two, now I know what to expect and how to move through it, how to navigate it. So I know about, if I'm going to change cities, I know about how long it takes before I start to feel like it's actually my own and I have my schedule and my own community. If I'm changing careers, I know how to strategize around it and what I need to do to set myself up so I don't have a gap in, my income and like how I'm going to make money. And because early on when I was doing that kind of stuff, I would just be out here being a young person like, YOLO, I'm about to quit. I don't have no backup plan. I'm going to figure it out. And then be like, what the heck did I just do? Like, I don't have no money. I'm broke, whatever the thing is. And so, yeah, I mean, I've learned because I've done it and failed and done it again, so it's all of that. It's really nuanced. But to your earlier point, it's really about just getting out there and living life, like trying it out,
Yeah. Just it's funny, the episode before yours, I talked to a guy whose brand, his podcast, everything like that is just get started. And those 3 words, that phrase holds so much. I was telling him it really resonated with me because it makes me think of Nike, and he was just saying, I said get started, or I could have said something else, but that just that action with it is just like, okay, well, let's do it now, because somebody can tell you to do it. You're like, okay, I'll do it. I'll figure it out. But just do it, just do it, like without saying now. But when you hear that, just, it's kind of, one, it gives a bit of an ease to it, but two, it's just like, all right, maybe it's not that bad. Maybe I just could, sometimes it's just about taking that step. Sometimes it's about taking that step and not knowing what awaits you on the other side. That's the scary, but that's the exhilarating part of what can be life sometimes. So I love to hear that. Now, as a career strategist or career coach, I could imagine that you have come across a plethora of different people in different industries, different niches, everything of the sort like that. Have you found that when helping others, when discussing with others, when consulting with others, when coaching others, there are commonalities? Are a lot of people across different industry, and I ask this question because I want business owners and entrepreneurs sometimes to realize that they're not alone, that just because you may be in an industry that's different from everybody else, or a niche that's different, or you come from a particular background or everything like that, everybody out there is going through some form or problem of yours. It may not be your exact specific, but I promise you, when you put it out there, when you talk about it, you can definitely resonate with something. So in your years of experience and working with others and really just hearing and keeping up with industry trends and everything of the sort, have you found there to be commonalities that are really affecting the business owners, the entrepreneurs, the creatives, the people in their rightful careers as we speak?
Yes. And I was trying to think of a concise way to sum it up. I would say it is I think it's the what, the how, and the mindset. So I see a group of people who they have decided to do the thing, whether it's to start a business or to change directions in their business or change directions professionally. And they've done the work to give themselves permission to do the thing. And then they're like, wait, but what am I going to do? Like, what is it? I don't really quite know. I don't want to keep doing the kind of work that I'm doing now. I want to do something different. So those are a certain group of people. And that feels like a clear, you can take some assessments, you can do some reflections, sort of do some research and have some conversations and start to test out which direction you like to go. Then there's the how, people who sort of know what they want to do and they're like, but I don't know how to do this. Like, so if someone is in a corporate career, for example, and they're like, I'm going to transition out of this and I'm going to start my business. Maybe they're going to start working independently doing the same kind of work that they're doing now, but they're like, okay, how do I do that? How do I get my first client, my first contracts? How am I going to sustain my living? Months on end, I got children, I got family to sustain, like how can I do this in a way that doesn't require me to go backwards? And that is really about strategy, like you think about how much you need to make, and then, so you do some reverse mapping and what you could be selling or what you could be doing, you do some networking, right? And then you have a plan. And then there's so many of us who it's a mindset thing. Like we want a different kind of life, but we haven't given ourselves permission to go after it. We're too scared. It won't work. Maybe we have some very real, you're taking care of loved ones, family members, kids, you have health issues yourself. You need the stability of the thing, or you're fearful that, the devil I know is better than the one that I don't, right? It's all of those. Or even if you have been like, okay, I know I want to do this thing, I'm going to give myself a chance to do it. Then there's these mindset blocks around, am I good enough? Do I have enough experience? Will people even want to hear what I have to say? Will they buy from me? So like we all have these sort of ruminating thoughts, these our own limiting beliefs to contend with that sort of keep us where we are. And so much of the work, whether you're going for a new job, a promotion, changing, businesses, starting a business, whatever the thing is, like the transition of it, the change management of it is difficult for all of us, right? And so I always like to tell people, it would be really irresponsible of me to be out here just telling people like, take the leap of faith, just do it, just change, go after your life you want. And then to really not manage your expectations that on the other side of that leap, you might not land too gracefully. Like there are things that you can put in place to make your landing more probable that it'll be successful. But even if your landing is successful, there's still a whole mess of middle that you got to move through around, well, did I make the right choice? Did I make mistakes? Should I have, like, oh, I'm here now, this is hard, or it's different, or it's whatever the mind stuff that comes up for you, we all have to navigate it. And, I think it's the reason why so many or some of us are able to move ahead is that we don't let the mind stuff stop us. We all experience it. We all get rejected. We all get scared. We all get nervous. We all get self-doubt. We all do. There is no one that doesn't. And so those of us who are able to really not let that stop us are the ones that usually end up having some version of the life that we want.
Absolutely. Because I love that last part of it, because even the people that are where you want to be, even those experts, those top voices, top dogs, they go through the motions, they go through everything. They're human beings at the end of it. Whether you put them in on a different pedestal or view them in a different light, they're still the same. People come to me a lot and tell me just about, like somebody told me today, your media training is great or impeccable or something like that, or like you're really comfortable in front of the camera, everything. I'm just like, look, like I still get nervous though. Like I'm not necessarily saying I get nervous for the interviews and everything like that, but I'm like, even when I do my live events, I pray beforehand. I'm nervous.
Yeah.
Even when I know I'm going other places, it's the nerve. It's just because I'm a human being. I have those emotions.
Yeah.
Do I allow that to consume me, to bog me down, to really affect my performance? No, I'm gonna get out there and I'm gonna give you the best show that I got every single time. We're gonna get down to business. You know what I'm saying? But it really just goes to show that a lot of times it's really here. And a lot of what I had to do throughout my journey is perfect this, become a master of this. And it's very important. The mind is a powerful tool, and we haven't even tapped into all of it, nearly half of it. So it's just like, a lot of times when I practice mental fortitude, a term that one of my fraternity brothers bestowed upon me, and I just never let it go since. And it was just like, to keep this strong is so important through everything, through no matter what happens, you have to keep this intact, because the minute it's not, as I told you with me, I know things start to fall apart. Things that I would never even would have imagined would be affected by my mental not being right are affected and are impacted. So I say all of that to say I go through the same things that the shyest person in the world may go through. You may consider yourselves an introvert. I may be extroverted, but I promise you, we still feel the same things. We still go through the same emotions and array of feelings just the same. But it's about how you combat with that, how you act upon it. Because no, I wasn't always, I wasn't always as impeccable as people think, or wasn't always, I watch plenty of videos now of myself. Eyes are going this way, or I stuttered, or I stammered, or I'm swaying. Even some of the professionals when I was in grad school, my Emmy award-winning professor, shout out to Simon Perez, still recording today, was calling me out for just basic things, and he was just like, but in a sense, it was just like, wow, like I thought that was pretty good, but you you saw that, you saw that, and you saw that. So it's just like, it's also too about where people meet you at in their journey. A lot of people who tell me this, well, they may not have a master's in broadcast and digital journalism and sports communication. They may not have been on a sports show each week. They may not have had to be in front of the camera for grad school for their capstone and be an announcer and everything like that. So I also understand the experiences and what comes with that as well. But I say that to still emphasize that, look, your boy, I'm a human. I get nervous. I go through the motion. I go through the things. I second guess myself. I'm a perfectionist. I'm all of that, especially when I'm doing this by myself. I'm procrastinating right now. I should have published that episode today. I didn't do it. But it happens, So, but like I said, it's all about how you come out on the other side of that. And I think that's so important.
Preach. Yes.
A side that we have not touched on just yet is you're an author. Yeah, I want to what's up with that? Because why I love that is because for the people who are following along the podcast, y'all know that I want to write a book someday. I want to put it out there. I don't even know what I just want to put a book out there. I think that would be really cool. It's like when I tell people I want to get my PhD, they say, why? Well, I mean, Dr. Turner sounds better than you know what I'm saying? So it's just like, I just need that, but obviously I'm not just going to throw myself in the PhD program. But as an author, why? Where did that come along in your journey? Why did you decide to do that? And then I've asked every author this question. They've always given me a different answer. What was the process like for you? I've had some people tell me it was smooth. It was easy. They called an editor. It was pretty easy once they got out of their own head. I've had some people tell me that it was probably one of the hardest things that they've done, from procrastination, from just life happening, from everything. And I've had people tell me that they were somewhere in the middle, that they would definitely do it again, or they have done it again, but they definitely learned along the way and they knew what not to do for next time. So for you, where do you fall within that realm?
Yeah. So in that period of time in my dance career where the sort of career bug had bitten me, and I was like, ooh, I get to share all the things that I've learned. And I started blogging. So I built a resource, a site called The Working Dancer. And it had like all these articles that I wish I had, down to like when I told my parents I was moving to LA, and just like all these things. And I was also again writing for Dance Magazine Point, these like, national dance publications. And I will say this about your question. Writing is what I enjoy. Like, I love stories. I love books. I grew up reading, and I collect books like most people collect shoes. Like, I just love stories. And so I think that's why it's a huge part of my work, with content development, things like that, and career strategy. It was like, for me, the process was like, okay, I started to have this collection of blog posts that were, like had a life of their own. And then I was like, okay, I started making these resources where I was like curating different posts for folks to read. Like, okay, if you're coming into my platform at this certain time, and now I have all of these, I have one about taxes, about when you should say no to the dance job, about when you should write. So I'm like curating these articles and like making it a resource. And then I was like, oh, well, if I'm making a resource with curated thoughts, this is just a book. Like, write the book. And so that's really kind of what it was, and this was like 2015, 2016 ish. And so, like ebooks as lead magnets, or books as lead magnets, were like a huge thing. And so I really just did that. The writing part wasn't difficult for me because, like I said, I was already like writing like a massive amount of content. So I really just put the thoughts together and organized sort of what I already had and filled in the gaps. And so I just would take my time and do that. It didn't take me a really long time because, like I said, I already had some stuff to work with. So within a couple of weeks, I did it, and then I self-published. So I was like on iTunes and Amazon and all the other places trying to understand. I did all of those things by myself. I basically was just like fumbled through it, like upload the book, figured I made my book cover on Canva. When I say I bootstrapped and did everything myself, I did it and I put it up there, and then I started telling everybody about it. I made a little reel for it. Like, video production is my thing, so I made a little commercial for it. Like, I did all of those things, and it was really like that. I was really, really proud of it. I have since gone on to do other sort of ebooks. Like, so my book was primarily digital, but you can also buy it on Amazon and get a hard copy of the book. I would like to write another book, but I would like for it to be like published by like a separate entity, maybe even like a major publishing house, just so I can know what that sort of feels like. I don't know if that's, I should be careful what I ask for, but for some reason, I don't know. This is going back to the limiting beliefs and like how we feel about ourselves. Like, as much as people are like, oh, you wrote a book, for some reason, I'm kind of like, yeah, I self-published it. And so I kind of want the weight of like somebody else believed in this idea too. And they wanted to publish it on my behalf. So I don't know if I'm overthinking it, but I'd like to have that experience.
There's a lot of things that you could do with that, but like you said, also be careful what you ask for. Typically as people who like to grind and get into all of that, we typically love to just throw things on ourselves, on the back, and we're just like, wow, like, yes, I really want to do this, but dang, I really added a lot with this one. I tell myself every time I look at I was even updating my resume today, and I was just like, dang, like, why was I doing all of that? Why did I choose to do that? Where did I follow up? It's just certain things that I come across sometimes, or I even tweeted probably like 2 weeks ago. I was just like, hey, have you ever signed yourself up for something and forgot, and that time came? You got that calendar reminder, you got that email, that phone call. You're just like, wow, when did I? Yeah, so I definitely understand that. I get that, but okay, I love that. I love to write too. So I studied my concentration was journalism, so I was big on that. I love to, from the bios that I do here. That's why I was kind of too. I tell people. I think now I'm realizing why I didn't want to move towards the Chat GPT realm of things, and it was just because I love to do it myself. I write all my episode bios myself. Just from listening to the episode, knowing the interviewee and everything. But two, I still got to make sure I got it. Like, I feel like. Start Chat GPT and things, I'm getting lazy. I'm losing vocabulary. I'm forgetting what word. I'm a big grammar person. People call me the grammar guardian because you don't make a grammar mistake around me, I'm going to correct text, whatever, email, whatever. It don't matter. Now, I also get caught slipping too, so it's okay. But I say all that to say, I just have that fond appreciation for that. So I want to always make sure that I'm staying in tune, that I'm tapped in, that I'm, like I said, I got to make sure I still got it. I can still get behind the wheel, and I can still make it shake and make it big. So. But I love to hear that with your journey, and I'm definitely very interested to see where it takes you as you start to explore and experiment with different routes and different options and just different experiences and even different people. You could definitely find it to be something that could be of great use to you and even propel you into different avenues just the same. Mm-hmm. So I know that we're going to have some people tapping in that their curiosity is piqued now. Their interest, their eyebrows have raised. They're kind of looking around the corner like, hold on, I'm kind of, she looks like me. I resonate with her. She done been some places I done been before. She understand the South. She understand the West Coast a bit. She could dance. So everything in there. But I am very curious, more so for my audience, but also just for myself, just the same to know. But what does it look like when people want to work with you, when people want to work with your organization, with what you guys are doing? A lot of, and I guess I asked that question too from a marketing standpoint. Like, how do people find out about what it is that you do? Is a lot of this word of mouth? Is a lot of it through other work and a lot of other connections that you have made? Is a lot of it through maybe events that you put yourself out there? Are you big on the social media? Is it a little culmination of everything? What does that really look like for you and the experience that others will get when stepping into your field too?
That's a good question. I can tell you all the things that I've tried and what I actually think works and what I enjoy. And so, I have done content marketing, right, which is all of the writing. I used to have my own podcast, so I've done that before. I now do podcasting, like guests on other people's shows. There's so much of this work that like is getting planted in a community. So for me, I'll talk my dance career. It was like, okay, what local community was I in? Do those people know me? Am I in those classes? Am I going to those events? Are we in those shows together? And so then that becomes like word of mouth. It's also like doing great work so that when, someone works with you, they call you back for the next one. So that's how referrals happen. And so, yeah, the other parts of it, social media is not always been a huge thing for me. I love LinkedIn. But just social media itself, because I grew up grew up. I feel like I'm sounding so old, but like when I was in the peak of my dance career, social media wasn't a thing, right? So we weren't having to like show how many followers we had at an audition to like book a job, right? But now that is how you're like building, right, your credibility and things like that. So for us, it was really like more in real life kind of things. And I find that I still like those kind of more in real life types of things. I will say that also one of the things that has been surprising to me that has been working is like Pinterest. And so I had my blog from back in the day that is still there. It's just shatehayes.com instead of The Working Dancer. It I would automatically post to Pinterest every time I blogged. And that is still bringing in people to my list like 8 years later. And then back to those real life relationships, after I got my master's in dance and I was a dance educator, being an adjunct at a number of different college campuses in the Dallas area, so many of my students are like still on my list. And like all these years later, when I was like, hey, good, what's up, y'all? This is what I'm up to. They've been like, a girl, I've been looking for you. Can we work together? And so those real life relationships like are a thing. So the things that resonate with me now that I continue to do are the blogging. I'm still active on LinkedIn, and then I still try to get out and about, like, and network as much as I possibly can, or just be in a community where people know me is probably a better way to say it. And then some of those like media type things, like I'm sure you're fond of, like the writing, the podcasting, and things like that. Those all feel enjoyable to me, and I like to have conversation and meet cool people. So like this like really, really works for me.
And look, y'all don't sleep on it. She got the LinkedIn Premium. So look, I caught a free trial a couple months back. I need to upgrade, but we gotta funnel that in the podcast budget. But it's definitely worth it. But I also love the point that you make about those communities, those like-minded communities, those individuals that are in with which you're in, and not necessarily always in your niche specific, but just like-minded, wanting to support others, wanting others to be great, looking like each other, because a lot of these communities, man, and a lot of sometimes what scares people or deters people away is just that we can't find somebody that looks like us in our space. And sometimes it's hard to be a trailblazer. It's hard to be that outlier. It's hard to be that one of these things is not like the other. It's not really the easiest thing to do. But I will say something that I have always found to date to be, and I'm more so done it within the last year or two, are joining these communities of people. There are so many people out here don't know you, probably may never meet you, but want you to succeed, want you to propel, want you to elevate, want you to do so and not have to go through all the mistakes, all the trials and tribulations, the hoops and the hurdles that they went through. They want you. It's nothing like somebody who doesn't want to gatekeep and who wants you to succeed and doesn't want to dime from it. But more so, your success is that's their joyous moment. That's their passion. That's their end all be all. That's why they go to bed happy each and every night, because whether you succeed, whether you fail, they're still set. They're still good, that foundation. And it wasn't until I really joined these communities that I learned. But you have to join communities eager as well. You don't join these communities and just let them build up in your inbox and become spam and you just get the notifications and you leave. Sometimes I've come across things that it was presented to me one way, but as I join and get into it, okay, maybe this is just not for me. But 9 times out of 10, when you do your due diligence, when you do your research, when you really are intentional about what you're getting into and what you're joining, man, the resources, the connections. I've had people send me things complimentary just because I joined and just because I followed up and said, hey, thank you for the invitation. I really appreciate that. And I love what you're doing on your platform. Hey, here's a free ticket to my conference where the tickets are going for $700. So it's just little thing. Now, I'm not saying that y'all just going, I'm not, it takes work. It takes time, but when you adopt these habits, it's just second nature. For me, I'm a big person who there's fortune in the follow-up. I call it follow-up Fridays. Fridays, I'm always following up on an email, on a post, on content, my calendar. Sometimes I got to follow up myself and let myself know, hey, you said Tuesday, it's Friday, bro. But I say all of that to say these communities are out here. There are people out here who want to help, I'm in communities where people literally just post, hey, I need a guest. You respond, hey, I would love to be your guest. You give them a little intro, they send you a calendar link. Just like that, you're in a new podcast, you're in a new market, you're in a new audience, you're in, somebody who now I have by the time y'all probably hearing this, we'll probably be close to maybe like 220, 230. I don't really know. I've lost track. Right.
Nice.
But I love the idea that, now I want to go to other podcasts. I kind of have gotten I would say 200 plus. I think I got the hang of this. I think I know what I'm doing. I'm a bit comfortable here. So now I want to get in front of other places because there are other people looking for business owners. There are other people looking for podcasters. There are other people looking to grow their following just the same. So pay attention to those communities, y'all. I'm really telling y'all. But I love asking that question to you too. And I love asking that question to a lot of the business owners and the entrepreneurs who I've interviewed, because grew up during a time where social media was not the end all be all, where it was not prevalent, where I had to beg my parents for a MySpace and a Facebook. We were this is the we were you were hitting the 7 to get the PQRS and everything like that. Like, this is,
Yes.
it wasn't like you said, it wasn't really relevant. It wasn't the first thing that you're pulling up when you get somewhere is the phone. Hey, look at
Yeah.
I put the phone, and I think I adopt a lot of that today, because I don't really record everything or document everything, or I had to start a note on my phone with my accomplishments, because I forget. Not to brag or not to, it's just because I forget. And when I have to have my manager evaluations or different things like that, and you're telling me, hey, tomorrow, you remember you did that, and I'm just like, I did do that. I forgot. So I had to start documenting things and keeping up with everything.
Yeah.
It's a lot out here. It's a lot going on. Things are always changing. We got Threads, Meta, X, Real, Short. I can't keep up with none of this stuff. And I'm only 28 years old. And it's crazy. It's wild. I told people I was tired of the TikTok. I'm on TikTok. I ain't dancing enough. We giving quotes. But it's hard. And it also makes me think about what's coming 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now. What's the next social media site? Like you said, I told my little brother and them about my little brother's only 20. They don't know nothing about no Pinterest or no Tumblr. They don't know about it because they seen it, the logo or the icon, but you wasn't on there. You wasn't, was that work? Like, it was, you could get some Pinterest. Man, when I need an idea or a tattoo or something like that, or some inspiration, man, I'm going through everybody board. Like, whoa, that from where Pinterest is that work. So it also goes to show too where we are along that journey and where we came into, because I talked to people even prior to us that a lot of it was that word of mouth, those mailers. You had to get them in person. You had to go to these events. You had to just show up and show out, because we weren't getting all the texting and the calling back and forth and the emails and all of that. We were barely looking at color on TV and different things like that. So it was just like, it was a different time. But I also think that extenuate your grind. I feel like you grind based off of even where you grew up in, and you're up your factors and everything around you, and the comparison being a thief of joy and everything. But you also grind based off of what you're used to. As you said, with our parents, there was a grind, but there was also that stability there. There was, they kept that same career, 30, 40, 50, retired, everything like that. With us, man, we can have a bad day. We're ready to go. Like, it's just like that. So but and it's funny because they always say like, Dad, y'all, all these business owners and entrepreneurs and all of y'all are a different generation. Y'all quick to just, yes, because look, if we ain't happy, we ain't happy. You know what I mean? So I just love that aspect of your journey. So now, before we get into all things where people can tap in with you, find more information about you, follow along the journey, even work with you, collaborate, everything of the sort like that, do you feel like there is anything that we have not touched on that you would love to speak about, whether it be words that you want to leave the people with? I know we're going to have some business owners, entrepreneurs, creatives, maybe even people who feel like they're stuck in that rut right now, who may just need some or some preparation. Or if you don't have any of that, what I also will say, something I love to do here, without spoiling any surprises or anything like that, do you have anything that we can look forward to, whether it be towards the end of this year for 2025, any new event? As you said, you just love to just add different things to your plate, and be careful sometimes what you wish and what you ask for, but you are a grinder nonetheless. So I know that, like I said in the beginning, we're going to have some people who this is their first time meeting you, seeing you, they're loving it, you're the perfect person for them right now. As you said, divine timing. Is there anything that they can look forward to now as they come along and meet you where you are in this journey?
I'll answer both of those a little bit. The first one is in terms of there's nothing super, I would say, top secret that I'm working on, but I am excited to be building out like a blog on Career Steward, and even repurposing conversations like these into more content, and just like basically telling more stories to help people be more purpose connected and be proud of the work that they do and who they are. And then we've touched on a lot, but I would just say that a couple of things you just said in your last little moment could be like additional conversations. The whole thing about like your performance review, like telling, so much of what I do is I help people tell their stories so that they can, get to grow their work in a way that works for them, or advance their careers in a way that works for them. That promotion, and people think that like, oh, it's all about tenure and like I've been here long enough to promote me. No. Like, you're gonna have to show your value, tell that story. And so that's everything. The way that people raise money for their businesses, the way that they get new opportunities, is literally about how we're talking about ourselves. So language that we're using, like we have to be able to tell those stories. So that's super important. There was something else that you said. I was like, well, that's a word. That's a word. That's a word. That's like all of these are just like, yes, like being in planted in those communities, like the networking. There's just like a lot of things I think that could be, you know, things that you explore further in additional conversations, because it's all super important, and also things that, you know, I think we've probably all have picked up, tried to have to like pick up on our as we've gone along. It's not something that we kind of maybe knew to begin with. So yeah.
Well, that just means that a follow up is definitely in the works because it's a lot to talk about, and I could imagine a year or two from now we'll be
Yeah.
in totally different places and spaces. So I'm definitely looking forward to that just the same. All right, so look, man, I thoroughly enjoyed this, and it's not to say that I never enjoy my interviews. I enjoy all of them, but this one was because I really enjoy the ones that speak to me. Some of them I can resonate with, but they're not necessarily tailored towards me. Very helpful information, definitely something that somebody else out there needs. But some of them are like knocking on, like, yo, Tamar, yo. When you listen back to that tonight. Like, don't worry, because but I even love I love having so many episodes kind of ahead too, because sometimes I forget about these gems and I talk to, and then I go play the episode back. I'm like, dang, that's some value, right? Oh, we got to get this. We should have got this out the same day. You know what I mean? But I love that because the podcast essentially too is timeless. You can tap in with us anywhere. Episode 3, episode 33, 57, 112. No matter where you are, you never miss a gem, never miss a moment. So I have to really take my hat off and thank you so much for everything that you're doing, everything that you've done, and really just, as I said, taking the time to do your due diligence with me and reaching out and wanting to be on the platform. There goes that siren I was telling y'all about. So, but it always happens, y'all. I'm telling y'all, I try to together. I never time it, but downtown Tampa. But I really just, I can genuinely appreciate everything that you're doing because I'm big on passion and I'm big on just being happy. And I'm big on, as I continue to grow older and just build more connections and just sustain what I'm doing, happiness is always at the forefront. And where I would say, I had shout out to Ed Jarecki, somebody whose podcast that I appeared on, Elevate Your Business. He asked me what my definition of success looks like today and what it looked like back then. And it was two totally different things, very much. And a lot of it was materialistic. And it was just like, I need the newest of everything. I want to look good, feel good, everything like that. And I'm not even really a flashy person to begin with. I just love nice button up shirts. That's all. Now my success for me is, am I happy? Where's my helping people? I'm not really worried about, the podcast has not nearly generated as much revenue as I want yet. But that's not to say that, if I was to really just focus on that, I would have stopped this episode 3, episode 4. We're 200 at this point, and I'm not stopping. I'm not looking back. I'm not going. I've had some amazing conversations, heard some amazing stories, and got some exposure and brand awareness, not only for myself, but for others. So I say all of that to say that, look, I genuinely needed this. And from Down to Business to Career Steward, we are wishing y'all nothing but the best. Always here to support, do whatever we can. But now here's my call to action. So arguably my favorite part of the podcast is, if the last 51 minutes were not, is the call to action, because this is where I feel like, one, if you made it this far, skipped around or tapped around, yes, I'm talking to y'all because I know y'all be skimming through these episodes, which is why I put titles on the YouTube videos. I want y'all to watch, get them gems where you get them. But this is the part where I really want people to feel like, you got all this value. You heard from a woman who is doing great things, who may even be able to kind of help you. So what are you going to do about it, in a sense? So out there that's tapping in, for everybody out there that's coming across this episode, whether they joined us live or whether they're hearing at a later date, can you just give us the best places to reach you, connect with you, social media, whether they got to pull up in person somewhere to meet? Just give us everything you got.
I would love to. Thank you for that. And I would say maybe you should just reframe that siren as like, play a game with it. Like, so whenever you hear the siren, that's the moment that you got to pay attention to in the podcast. That's the nugget. That's the ring the alarm moment. So yeah, just you use that. Don't let it use you. So where you can find me, I mean, first I'd say, for how would you know that, you would need a me, is if you are trying to get to this next thing. You want to probably work independently. Basically, if there is anything in you that's like, what I'm doing right now is not in alignment with who I am, I'm ready for the next thing, whatever that is, and you need the strategy and the story to make that happen, I am the person. And so I do have a resource that I'd love to give away if you're okay with it. Couple of things, actually. So one is, I work with a lot of people, especially creatives, who want to work independently, but they need the stability of, something to know that they can like maintain their lives. So I've got a resource where it's like 40 sources of independent contract work to supplement like what you're doing. And then when you grab that, there are a couple of other resources like how you can find the match for you, like the career match. Make sure that you're working in alignment. And then you're also plugged into my career stories. I send a career story each weekday of all the things that I'm learning, the pitfalls, the things, moments that made me cry, the moments that were like, oh yeah, this was worth the $1 million that I just spent. And I share all of that. And you can basically grab those resources and be connected to me at lightmycareermatch.com. So that's lightmycareermatch.com is where the resources are. And from there, you'll be plugged into everything. So the blog posts, all my stories that I have. I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me Shaté Hayes, but lightmycareermatch.com will get you to all the places you need to be.
And I just connected with her on LinkedIn, y'all. Like I said, that pre no joke. So go ahead and do that. Hey, man, I really just, like I said again, just thank you for everything. Thank you for connecting. Thank you for what you're doing and the light you're shining in the lives of others, and thank you for really helping me, pushing my passion project forward and what I'm here with Down to Business and everything, So I really do appreciate that. And as I said, Down to Business is here to support. Very excited to be able to tap in with you where we are now, but continue to follow along and see where things are. Even go back and see what you've done and what you've amassed and accomplished, and then we're going to move that forward for prosperous years to come. So thank you for that. But to everybody else, man, who continuously taps in with us, whether you join us on the IG Live, whether you join us on the Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, whether you hear this at a later date, I appreciate y'all, man. The podcast would not be where we are today without y'all, even through everything that's happened, from relocation to just, delay but not denial. Sometimes the hurricane tried to not, knock us out of business and everything. We're still here. God is good all the time for sure. So I thank y'all. I love y'all. This has been another episode of the Down to Business podcast here with Tamar Turner.